you'll never choose one thing, do it, and then succeed at it, right? It never works like that. It's about trying a bunch of different things, seeing what you love and what you're passionate about, but also the things that work out in terms of, your characteristics and your qualities and stuff, and what's congruent with your personality.
Welcome to the Chase Homer podcast, where I got my man, Dimitri Nico. And, we actually were in San Diego together. We met for some time, brief time, but, we went to an epic mansion party and it ended up being a great time. One of my favorite people inside the e-commerce space. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, that mansion party was crazy. I just kind of bumped into you right after the ad leaks thing, and you were like, "Yo, do you speak?" I was like, Who is this guy? And then he's like, "Hey, come get in the Uber."
Let's do this
crazy party. I'm like, where the hell am I going? But yeah, no, that was cool.
That was awesome. Yeah, you just came with me, fully trusted. It's all good, And we ended up having to go speak the next day and super early in the morning, and it all worked out. But yeah, man, glad that we finally were able to connect here. You're all the way in Australia or Cape Town? Where are you at?
Yeah, so I'm from Australia. I live in Melbourne primarily. I guess right at the moment I'm in South Africa, in Pretoria. I was in Cape Town for a little bit. It's beautiful there. We'll probably go back. But yeah, I'm just on the road consistently, depending on where the next show or conference is, just bouncing around. So it's pretty cool.
Now you're a young dude. I didn't realize, because I'm almost double your age, bro. So you're 23.
Really?
You're 23?
Yeah, I'm 23, man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So I'm 40. So I was actually tripping out because I was actually looking at your profile, trying to get some stuff ready for the show. And I was like, oh, dude, this cat's super young. But you're traveling everywhere. I remember when I was 23, 24, I started to try to really start building a business when I was 25, 26. I was before that, I was kind of half-assed and stuff. But you are doing it pretty hard, traveling all around the world, speaking on stages. Tell me a little bit about how you cultivated this following, right? At 23 years old. I mean, you must have had to start in your teenage years, right? To be able to be where you're at now. Can you kind of give me a little bit of that backstory there?
Yeah, right. I mean, I did start years ago, and that's kind of when the foundational knowledge was laid out. So I'll give you the whole rundown in the story and stuff. But I mean, in terms of building the following and stuff like that, I only really put myself out there maybe 12 to 18 months ago. So just to kind of give you a rundown, I started back when I was probably 17 years old. My little brother came to me one day and he showed me this Alex Becker video, who's an internet marketer. I don't know if you know of him. And it was all about drop shipping and stuff like that. And we're like, oh shit, this is crazy. Let's give it a go. Let's start an e-com brand. And we started with computer parts, and we ordered them from AliExpress. And that turned out to be a complete scam. We just lost it as kids, which is pretty funny.
What kind of computer parts were you selling? Just stuff that plugged into your computer or what?
It was it was graphics cards for gaming, because my brother was a huge gamer, right? And he was like, oh yeah, let's just start by ordering these and selling them at school. They're super, super cheap on this website. And we were it just blew our minds how crazy the margins were. Turned out it was, like I said, a complete scam, and that's why it was so cheap. We were pretty demotivated after that. But yeah, then I got into drop shipping. I started a store where we were selling survival kits and all this prepper stuff, and then started this jewelry store. And this is back in the days when e-com was barely even a thing, right? The ads were horrendous, and it was still working somehow. And then from there, I actually got into law school in Melbourne. So I kind of dropped everything for that. And 2 or 3 years in, I just kind of realized that I didn't fit in there at all. So
I can't see you. I can't picture you as a lawyer, bro.
I know, right? Yeah. And I only did it because, the reason most people go to college or uni, my parents were oh, go to law, and I thought I'd impress them,
Sure.
Good degree, but it was just trash. So I ended up dropping out of that and starting an agency. And back then it was all local business, real standard stuff, lead generation for gyms and stuff like that. And from there, I kind of found my niche per se in e-commerce, just because I had that experience and understanding and foundational knowledge from before, back when I was a teenager. And then started picking up clients, and over time the clients got bigger and bigger. The agency got bigger and bigger. Now we're managing, I actually checked today, I think we're just under 1.5 million a month in ad spend managed for our clients. And that pretty much brings us to where we are today, man.
Yeah, well, that's amazing, man. 1.5 million in an ad spend, 23 years old, just doing it, creating 7-figure, 8-figure brands. What's your hottest brand right now that you guys are promoting? What's the hottest thing that you guys are selling online right now?
Oh, we're doing a bit of everything across all our clients. I mean, we've got clients. We've got a big client that sells teas. We've got a big client that sells car parts that's doing like $1 million a month, just selling these like remote car starters and stuff.
Yeah.
Like jewelry, like nail polish, all this completely random stuff. Like it's an awesome spread. Like we get to see a bit of everything, which is really cool. Lots of fashion as well. We've kind of recently just cracked that and started getting one client insane results, like with some tweaks and stuff we did in their account. And since then, all the fashion brands have been flooding in, wanting to work with us and stuff like that, just based on that one kind of success. But yeah, it's a pretty even spread across the board, man.
Well, I'm good friends with Tim Burn and all those guys that, are like kind of like these gurus of like e-commerce and ad buying. And, I'm always curious because it seems like in your business, there's a lot of like trial and error, right? So like in order to figure out stuff, you have to make mistakes and you have to figure out like what's working and what's not working. Like what's the biggest like failure or biggest like mistake you think that you've made like in doing this, doing what you do?
That's a tough one. Not because I don't make mistakes. I mean, fuck.
Everyone makes mistakes, right? And I'm not trying to bust your chops, but I would like to know, because there is a lot of trial and error and you guys spend so much money. I mean, there has to be some stuff, or maybe even personally, that you guys have run your own offers where you put something out there and you're like, fuck, that's not working. And you like blew through like 20 grand or something like that. It was a mistake like that,
Yeah. Well, actually, I recently had this isn't really related to that data and media buying side that you said, but we recently had a hair extension company that we were running with. And we this was our first time starting our own e-com brand and doing it like properly, coming from, a purely marketing background, because we do all the marketing for clients and we drive all their sales. And, essentially we're like the revenue driver for their business, right? So it's easy for that to get to our head. And I think it happens for all marketers, and to say, we're doing this for other people, why not just do it for ourselves, right?
Right, of course.
So we decided to get into like the hair extension stuff. I knew fucking nothing about hair extensions. Can I swear on this, or what's the go with swearing? Yeah. So I knew nothing about hair extensions, and we kind of got into it. We started selling. We had a supplier in China that was drop shipping, but it was all like branded drop shipping with our own packaging and stuff like that.
Sure, of course.
And then we probably got to about $2 or $3 grand a day in sales, so nothing huge. And the goal was to scale it to like 30 or 40 grand. So a day. And we got it to like $2 or $3 grand a day in sales within like 2 or 3 months. And then everything started breaking down on the supplier side. We found out all the orders they were shipping out were like complete trash. Some of them were like mixed, like because we were selling human hair, right? It was pretty high ticket, like $250 an order. And they were like mixing it with like fake synthetic plastic hair and shit like that.
Fuck.
Ended up getting a shitload of chargebacks. Yeah. So that happened. That ended up being a huge mess. And then we just kind of packed that one in, because I was like, I can't be dealing with customers that like, we were color matching hair, and media buyers were doing customer support, and it was just not the way it should have been.
Oh no. When you have media buyers doing customer support, that's not good. Do you have, you're like, the package will get there, I promise. So what, do you find like that's the biggest problem with drop shipping specifically? Like where you're dealing with a supplier and then they just are doing stuff like to just make it cheaper on their side and still charge you the same amount? Do you feel like that's a big problem, or do you feel like it's other parts of that equation that make it difficult?
Dude, suppliers, like, I think a lot of merchants or like retailers underestimate how much leverage the supplier has and how much control they have over your business. Because once you're kind of working with someone, like with us with the hair extensions, for example, we had one supplier, right? So our entire business depended on them. Right. They could do whatever the fuck they wanted. They could increase the prices. They could start shipping out crap. And until we completely got rid of them, which is obviously, it's like a really high barrier to entry activity to find a new supplier, right? You got to change over all the packaging. You got to, particularly with hair extensions, because like color matching is so important, right? So if we change supplier, all of our color charts would have to change. Pretty much everything on the website would swap out. so it like they have so much control over your business, and if you don't have a good relationship with that supplier, you're going to be in really big trouble.
It seems like they're like the make or break, because, you know, ultimately you guys are spending all this cash, generating all this traffic, and then the supplier could just totally screw you.
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard some horror stories, man. Like I back in March, I was speaking in Melbourne at a conference, and there was this other girl that was speaking there, and she had a tea brand. I think it was Skinny Me Tea. It was quite a big tea brand a little while ago, and she said that one of her first stock orders when they were getting started, they ordered 80 grand worth of tea, and there were like bolts, like nuts and bolts in the tea and shit like that. And when they opened them,
oh my God.
Yeah, and like by the time the inventory and the stock got to her, like she went and hit up the supplier and was like, "What's going on here?" And they were just like, you know,
Oh, no.
and what are you going to do? You know, who are you going to try to?
So was she buying it like in bulk, like where she was like getting it
out
of herself, or was she actually?
So she was doing her own fulfillment in this case. And I mean, you have, no matter what the model is, you're always going to have challenges. I mean, we had a fitness brand a while back called Ape Athletics, and we did like some promo one weekend where we said, you know, we'll give away a free t-shirt with every order. So it was like fitness apparel, and one of the numpties in operations didn't check to actually make sure that we had the t-shirts in stock. So we had this huge flash promotion. We did about 20 grand in sales over that weekend. Yeah. And we could fulfill any of the orders. We had to refund.
Oh my God. It's like a chargeback nightmare, dude.
Yeah, man, that's it.
You know, what's funny is like, you know, it's not funny, right? But like being on the merchant service kind of thing, like we react to like how the business is going, but you don't truly understand like whether the merchant, I mean, a lot of processors out there, they don't really understand if the merchant like is just being a scumbag or if they really have a true problem, right? So like, you know, because a lot of these automated decisions, like you might be running a good business and you get screwed by having like a bad supply with nuts and bolts in your tea bag, you know, and then like, what do? Right? So what happens in a situation like that? You know, you have $80,000 that you outlaid, right, to go get the supplier. Now it all comes to you. There's fucking nuts and bolts in it. You're like, I can't sell this. So what's the process when you get like nuts and bolts in your tea bag? It's like, what do you actually do? Like, cause you have like people that are buying from you, right? So you have to fulfill these orders. So like, do you just send out a mass email to your clients and say, hey, listen, sorry, there was a malfunction with the shipping, and then like you reorder another stack, and you have to be liquid enough to actually reorder another stack and wait for a reimbursement too, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, I don't know what she did in her case, but she said after that she never made that mistake again. She had like backup suppliers, and she did a lot more quality control testing and stuff. It's like any mistake in business, right? We all make mistakes and we all learn from them.
No, absolutely.
Like, in the case of Ape Athletics, it was like, you know, we were in damage control. It was just, how can we fix this so our customers don't hate us? Because it's so important that the customers are in tune with the brand and that they love your brand and all that sort of stuff, because obviously that impacts your lifetime value and all that. So we were giving them, like, I think every customer that ordered, we ended up giving them like 2 or 3 other t-shirts to kind of compensate and be like, hey, we messed up. We're sorry. We're really sorry. Here's you to prove it, you know? Essentially. And like, I mean, so you can always find measures and kind of, you know, go down routes to keep them happy and stuff like that. When you do make mess ups and
no. I mean, stuff happens, right?
That's it.
You know, obviously we're caught up in business. It's a big part of our lives, but obviously, it's so obvious, you know, I'm 40 years old and I'm just kind of starting to reflect on like what makes me better as a human, trying to be like better and more impactful, not only in business, but personally. And so that means like I'm just trying to read and get more knowledgeable and all of that finally. But, you know, do you have any like audibles or books that have been like really impactful that kind of changed the way that you believe or think today or operate in business?
Yeah. So I don't actually read much in terms of books. There's one book. It's called the How to Find Your Big Marketing Idea by Todd Brown. I think that's what it's called. Definitely by Todd Brown. That's been a really, really impactful book when it comes to marketing, because obviously that's what my whole career is based around. That one's great. So I'd recommend like any marketer, even any business owner, to read that, because it really breaks down and discusses what makes a good marketing idea or product, right? And kind of all like the fundamentals. It essentially breaks it down into like a mathematical formula. And that completely shifted my perspective when I read that. In terms of other like resources, I really like this guy, Alex Becker, this internet marketer, and kind of like the mindset stuff that he talks about. he's been really great. Not so much of a fan of his content, just because it's some pretty basic like drop shipping kind of getting started stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the mindset side of things and what he discusses, it's really great. So I'd recommend people check that out for sure.
Well, what's like the ultimate goal, right? So you're 23 years old, you're building this business, you're building this squad, and you have a team and you're dealing with clients, and obviously referrals are coming in. But what's the ultimate goal, right? Do you have a long-term goal about like what your objectives are? I mean, is there one day where you're going to like hang up the marketing cleats and maybe do something different? Or is this like, what's the long-term goal for Dimitri?
Yeah. So the plan at the moment, what we're kind of doing is we're just really focusing on building out the agency and kind of increasing the revenue. Not so that we obviously like benefit from a revenue perspective or anything like that, but as that revenue grows, the team will build out and we'll have a platform or a team that we can use and leverage to actually acquire or start our own e-commerce brands. And then from there, we just want to have like, a portfolio of brands. And we'll be buying and growing and then flipping, because we'll have the resources in-house to do that sort of stuff. So the agency is effectively like a front end for a bigger game.
Sure.
But I think it will for quite some time be in online marketing and e-commerce and stuff like that. And then once we've got bigger wealth, big numbers, then we can get into like property and development and all that sort of stuff. But that's kind of like old people business, so I'm not quite there yet.
The old money, man. You're still in the new money.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's it, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Right on, man. One of the things I was going to ask you, a lot of times when I build business, like when I'm building the business, it's frustrating. You make mistakes, you have problems. It's not a great day, not a bad day. Sometimes you might be in focus or more focused than others. Like when you're in those mindsets, when you really like are having a trouble, like staying focused, or maybe something derailed you that really fucked you up mentally, like what is it that you do to help yourself get out of that state of mind? Is there anything that you do, or go somewhere or do something to get out of that mindset?
Well, I mean, in terms of things that I do when I'm kind of feeling that way, I do like to go to the gym a lot, like I think it's really good to kind of blow off steam and just get mental clarity and stuff like that. But
Sure.
I mean, in terms of kind of, being in that slump, I mean, I've been there and I'm sure a lot of people have been there, even,
Absolutely.
6 to 12 months ago, kind of once the agency really took off and we kind of started seeing money come in and I didn't really have a long-term vision. It was kind of like, it kind of got to the stage where it's like, now what? Like, I can buy short of buying like a Lamborghini and a mansion, a private jet and all that shit. I can essentially have whatever I want. I would like bought everything I needed for my apartment. And then it was just like, now what? And I ended up in like this big slump as a result of that. And I think that the most important thing to remember is, it's super, super important to have that long-term vision or that end goal, and to understand, and this is something that I learned from that, it's important to understand that it's not about achieving that end goal. It's about, the process along the way. And it sounds super cliche, but most of the joys are going to come out of, the process and the hustle and the grind and actually doing the things that it takes to get to that end goal. So I don't know, I feel it's really important to constantly be progressing. And as soon as that progression stops, that's when you're going to end up being in a slump. So always super important to have that long-term vision. Make sure that vision's uncapped, right? So, once you start getting closer, you want to set new goals for yourself and stuff like that, so that you are constantly progressing. That's kind of like the fundamentals or the key learnings that I found, being where I was then, because my goal was to like, I want to build an agency. I want to have this many clients and I want to be doing this much revenue. And I never had a vision beyond that point. And kind of, so when I got there, I was just like, well, fuck.
Now what?
So yeah. Now what? Exactly.
Yeah, no, I feel like, everybody in business or, life in general has these moments, right? And then you try to get some clarity about it, but you don't necessarily have that clarity and how you actually progress through it, because everybody says, the journey, right? And it is cliche as fuck, but the thing is that the journey fucking sucks. It's ultimately when you have the wins, like when you have wins or breakthroughs, that's when you're like, oh, all that fucking shit was worth it. I finally broke through that barrier that was holding me back. That's what kind of keeps me going. But the journey itself, like, because when you're in the journey and it's hurting and it's painful, it sucks,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you got to keep going forward and taking steps, Well, so what's the next event for you guys? Where are you speaking next, and where are you headed over the next few weeks?
So I'll be here for the next few weeks. I'm gonna go to Bangkok in December. I'll be at that conference. And then from there, I'll be speaking or I think I'll be speaking, it hasn't been confirmed yet, at Digital Marketers Australia in Melbourne. So yeah, I got a couple, and then I'll be going to traffic and conversion as well in the States, and hopefully iStack after that, which is, where we met 9 months ago, however long ago it was. Yeah, that's it,
Of
man. So
course.
I'll be there.
Which iStack one?
No, I'll be at traffic and conversion.
Okay.
iStack kind of stacks onto the back of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think iStack's going on anymore. iStack was great, man. They did a great job. They just brought a lot of really good talent. I wish we could have kept that thing going with those guys. But
did you say they're not going on anymore?
Yeah. So iStack,
really?
they basically kind of stopped it. But all those guys are still going to be speaking at those types of events at those, just like yourself, speaking at traffic and conversion and all those types of events. But iStack itself, I don't think is no longer continuing. But
wow, that's really interesting, because that's I think that's probably the highest level, big kind of event that I've ever been to. Out of conferences and events and in that sort of league. So masterminds aside and stuff. Yeah. That room, when I spoke in that room, was like the most impressive audience by far that I've ever spoken to.
Yeah, it's the right audience, super high quality speakers. It was just great, So it's a bummer that it's not still going on. But I'll definitely be out in San Diego too. I think I'm going to Canada at some point. But listen, man, if you had to leave the audience with one thing, to kind of get themselves or level up, what would you say the best thing, or what would you do to make those next steps and kind of level up or internally? Because a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast are trying to figure out what they're going to do, or maybe make the next move to progress in their business. So do you have any advice for an entrepreneur that's in the business?
Yeah. So for the guys that are kind of just kicking things off or thinking about kicking things off, I would say at the moment, it's all about just trying to do as much stuff as you can and seeing what sticks. In the beginning, it's difficult to kind of know, or you'll never choose one thing, do it, and then succeed at it, right? It never works like that. It's always super up and down, super volatile, right? So when you're starting out, it's about trying a bunch of different things, seeing what you love and what you're passionate about, but also the things that work out in terms of, your characteristics and your qualities and stuff, and what's congruent with your personality, because that's a huge thing in business, right? If you're super introverted, you're probably going to end up behind a computer media buying and having an online business, where if you're super extroverted, you might be doing sales and business development and stuff like that. So for the guys starting out, I'd say it's the most important thing is just getting going, of course, right. And then you kind of work out the rest of it. For the guys that are already doing big things, this is one kind of thing I was thinking about the other day, and I actually put a status up on Facebook about it. It was kind of like a realization that I had, and it's, even the best person in the world in their particular field only knows 1% of what there is to know about that thing or that topic, right? Like you look at, Albert Einstein, the guy that knew the most about physics in the world. He knew the most compared to anyone else, but there would still be a shitload of stuff that he didn't know, right? About,
of course.
No one knows about that stuff. Same deal with like media buying, right? I think I'm pretty good at media buying, but I think there's so much more to know about, like the inner workings of Facebook and the algorithm and stuff like that. So if you adopt that attitude with wherever you are now, you'll realize that your capability for growth is really unlimited, and that's kind of where you need to be so that you can continue to grow and progress. Because once you're kind of at that stage where you're kind of getting to the upper limits of whatever you're trying to achieve, it's easier to get a big head and stop growing.
So, if people want to know more about you or reach out to you or possibly work with you on some sort of e-commerce campaign or just advice, how do they reach out to you? How do they get a hold of you and your team?
Yeah, awesome. Super easy. So you can just go to dimniko.com. It's DIMNIKO.com. That's my website. You can check us out and stuff like that. There'll be a link to my Facebook in the top right. And if you click on that, I put out a bunch of crazy content on e-commerce and media buying and all that sort of stuff every day. And it's super valuable, completely free and stuff. And then if you want to talk about growing your e-commerce brand, you can go to dimniko.com/scale. And that's where we've got, all the information about growing and working together. Yeah.
Well, You're one of my favorites, man. You're on the come up. You're about to be a legend. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. And man, I can't wait till I see you again. So thanks so much, Dim.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.